Carlo Ancelotti said something about Jude Bellingham that stopped me completely. He said, "I am surprised. He is only 20 years old because he looks like he is 30 because of his character and attitude. He is always focused on the game and knows what he has to do. It is unusual for a 20-year-old. The manager of Real Madrid, one of the most decorated coaches in football history, saying that a 20-year-old plays with the character and attitude of a 30-year-old. That is not a compliment about speed or skill. That is a statement about psychology, about maturity, about the specific quality of mind that most people take decades to develop, and Bellingham arrived with before he was old enough to legally drink in most countries. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to PsyWealth, Richie. Today we are covering someone whose psychological story I find genuinely more fascinating than his football, and his football is extraordinary. Jude Bellingham, the most mature young mind in world football right now, and a complete psychology lesson about what it means to develop real mental maturity, not the kind that comes from age, but the kind that comes from a specific way of thinking about yourself, your role, and your responsibility. If you are new here, subscribe. Now let's get into it. Jude Bellingham was born on June 29, 2003 in Stourbridge, England. He made his Birmingham City debut at 16 years and 38 days, the youngest player in the club's history. At 17, he moved to Borussia Dortmund. At 19, he was being named as one of their captains. At 20, he moved to Real Madrid for over 100 million euros, and in his debut season scored 23 goals from midfield, a record for a first season at the club. He won the Champions League, La Liga, the FIFA Club World Cup at 20, and through all of it, through the records and the trophies and the scrutiny of playing for the biggest club in the world, the thing that everyone who has worked closely with him consistently remarks on is not his speed or his technique, it is his mind. Pep Guardiola said this guy was something special in terms of his mentality. The whole package is really good. David Beckham said for someone so young to have the maturity that he has is incredible. He's a model pro that knows exactly what he needs to do. When the best coaches and players in the world keep using the same word, maturity, that word deserves a deeper look. Here's what I think is the most psychologically significant thing about Bellingham. He takes responsibility without deflection. When Real Madrid had a difficult 24-25 season when results didn't match expectations and fans were frustrated, Bellingham said publicly and directly, "I was involved in that too in terms of how we didn't play as well last year. Still, there were good moments, but not at the level I want to play. I'm not at the same level I was in my first year." Most people at his level of public profile, when things go wrong, find a way to position themselves outside the problem. They talk about team dynamics or coaching changes or circumstances outside their control. Bellingham said, "I was involved in that too." That is called mature accountability, and it is one of the rarest psychological qualities available to human beings at any age, because it requires a specific kind of self-security that most people never develop. The security to acknowledge your own contribution to a failure without that acknowledgement threatening your sense of who you are. Most people's ego cannot survive the honest admission that they were part of what went wrong. Bellingham's ego is secure enough that the admission costs him nothing and gains him everything in terms of respect and trust from the people around him. Bellingham said something about leadership that I think is the most practically useful definition of leadership I have ever heard from an athlete. He said, "The biggest part of leadership is that you lead by example, with your performance first and foremost, not with your words, not with your presence, not with your personality, or your charisma or your ability to give rousing speeches in the dressing room. With your performance first and foremost." That is a deeply mature understanding of how influence actually works in high-performance environments. Because in those environments, words are cheap. Everyone can say the right things. Everyone can project confidence and motivation and collective purpose. What actually moves people, what actually changes behavior in the people around you, is seeing someone demonstrate, through their own actions, exactly the standard they are asking everyone else to meet. Bellingham was captaining aspects of Borussia Dortmund's leadership structure at 19, not because he was the loudest voice, because he was the most consistent performer, because when things got difficult, when the pressure was highest and the margin for error was smallest, he produced every single time. And that production, that reliable delivery when everything is on the line, is the most powerful leadership statement available to any human being. Here is something about Bellingham that I find deeply admirable from a psychological perspective. He has faced significant criticism and rumor during his time at Real Madrid. There was a period where fans at the Bernabeu whistled him, one of the most psychologically brutal experiences a footballer can endure. Their own home, crowd expressing displeasure. There were rumors about his personal life that circulated in the media. And his response to all of it was psychologically sophisticated, in a way that belies his age. He said, there are two ways you can take it. You can cry about it and moan or send a lawyer, or you can just roll with it and enjoy it. I know the truth. I know what really goes on in my personal life. I know what I give to the game and the team. That response contains everything I have talked about on this channel about what genuine psychological security looks like. He doesn't need the crowd's approval to know his own value. He doesn't need to defend himself publicly to know the truth. He simply holds the truth internally, clearly, securely, without requiring external validation, and keeps performing. And then he scored against Monaco and celebrated with a gesture aimed directly at the rumors. Not with anger, with humor, with the kind of lightness that only comes from someone who is genuinely not threatened by what people say about them. Here is where Bellingham's psychological story becomes even more compelling in the current moment. At the 2026 World Cup, at 22 years old, he has already won 3 Man of the Match awards in the tournament, leading England, playing with the freedom and authority of someone a decade older. He said about his role, "I don't care where I play on the field or the position. I always want to play well for my team." That complete absence of ego around personal positioning, the willingness to do whatever the team needs without making it about what role serves him best, is one of the most mature psychological orientations a footballer can have. And it is exactly what makes him so dangerous on the pitch, because he is not thinking about himself. He is thinking about what the moment requires, and then he delivers it. And now I want to speak directly to you, because I think Bellingham's psychology contains lessons that apply far beyond football and far beyond his specific circumstances. The first is about accountability. When something goes wrong in your life, in your work, your relationships, your creative output, your first instinct is probably to look outside yourself for the explanation, at the circumstances, at the other people involved, at everything except your own contribution to the outcome. Bellingham's instinct is the opposite. He looks at himself first, not in a self-flagellating way. Just honestly, I was involved in that too. Practice that sentence. It is one of the most powerful things you can say. The second is about leadership. Stop trying to lead with your words. Lead with your performance. Show people through your own actions the standard you believe in. Be the first one to demonstrate what you are asking of everyone else, because performance speaks in a language that words can never match. The third is about criticism. You have 2 choices every time someone says something negative about you. You can cry about it and moan, or you can roll with it. Know the truth about yourself clearly enough that other people's version of you simply cannot reach the place inside you where your identity lives. Bellingham knows the truth, and that knowledge, and held quietly, securely, without requiring anyone else to agree with it, is the most powerful form of confidence available to any human being. Jude Bellingham is 22 years old. He has won the Champions League, La Liga, the FIFA Club World Cup, and is currently leading England at the 2026 World Cup. And the thing that every manager, every teammate, every opponent who has encountered him consistently remarks on is not his talent. It is his mind, the maturity, the accountability, the security, the willingness to lead by example rather than by words, the ability to roll with criticism without being moved by it, the complete absence of ego around what role he plays as long as the team benefits. That psychological profile, built, not from age, but from a specific way of thinking about yourself, and your responsibility is available to anyone willing to build it. You don't need to be 22 years old with a Champions League medal. You need to be honest about your own contribution to what goes wrong, to lead with what you do rather than what you say, and to know yourself clearly enough that what other people say about you simply never reaches the place where it can do damage. Subscribe to PsyWealth Richie. Share this with someone who needs to develop that kind of maturity today. We will see you in the next one.